Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today we have Sheriff Mark Butler. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
It seems like you're here all the time. People are accusing us of being your PR firm.
I told you I'd come back June 20th, 24th, after the 20th.
After the elections.
The election starts today, for us. So re-election, and we're very proud and moving forward. And I'm sure there's some things you might want to ask, and I'll give the best answers.
The world of social media is just beating up all candidates. Everyone, we live in a glass house, people throwing rocks at us. Probably one of the biggest thing is your Herndon story. We covered this 4 years ago. I don't know why people are still, they bring stuff up all the time. I guess they don't believe anything that happens. But what's it boiled down to?
Well, it boils,
You mentioned it was politically motivated.
It was politically motivated then, and it's politically motivated now. I refuse to talk badly about the Herndon Police Department or any other police department. We have a tough enough job as it is, and I will not deface the law enforcement officers on the street, or I just won't do that. But I had a blessed career in Herndon. I went years and years. I've received, congressional awards and so on and so forth, and I just had a blessed career. But, when I started running for sheriff, Chief DeBorg and I just don't see eye to eye and don't get along. I don't like her. She doesn't like me. It is what it is. There's some individuals in every place you work.
Right. I'm sure you got some in the sheriff's office.
I'm sure, right? But, here I go, whole career. I've been doing this sworn oath in the Army when I was 17.
Sure.
And I've been doing this now. I'm 50-some years old.
You're 50-some.
I'm an early 50. I think politics have no place in law enforcement, and that's one of the things that her and I disagree on. Mm-hmm. And I believe in the Constitution. She didn't. At least that, one of her statements she said needed to be updated and revamped. And
right.
I didn't agree with that. And next thing I know, I'm getting close and doing well in the campaign. And I got 3 IAs in one day.
Right.
I had already had my resignation.
And what's an AI?
Internal affairs.
Okay. Okay.
So the first one came in, and they sat this red folder on the table, and they said improper use of sick leave. And I was like, no. My sergeant gave me off so I could go set up an appointment at VA, and then I marched in the fireman's parade. It was not improper use of sick leave. It was approved, and so that one's nonsense. The second one, they said politicking on duty, and they clicked up on the screen, and they said, you posted this article on Facebook during your shift, so you're politicking on duty. And I was like, well, that's funny because I don't have access to Facebook. I don't even have access to that account. Haven't. There's like 4 or 5 people on the campaign team, so clearly I didn't write that. And they said, then they pulled up the one, and they go, processing this vehicle. And I said, okay. Well, there's actually 7 steps to processing a vehicle. Clearly that vehicle had dew all over it, and the last step is collection of evidence. Well, they said, you didn't fingerprint. You didn't use fingerprint dust. I said, no, there were no fingerprints to take off the car, and the car was covered in dew. And they kept pushing it. Well, I believe you wrote an improper report. And none of that, which is criminal, nor would have been fireable. And I told them, I don't agree with you. I didn't agree then. I don't agree now. And I said, I know what this is. This is political rhetoric. And I think this is workplace harassment. So I politely, in many words, less words, got up and told him to have a nice life. And I walked into the captain's office, pulled out my wallet, threw down a thumb drive, and said, I need you to print out file 2 because I'm not going to let you all affect me running for sheriff. And it wasn't worth it to me. It was not worth me being there, and I wasn't happy there any longer, like a lot of people. And that happens in jobs. You do not always get along with the boss.
Right.
You do not always have the same visions. That's life. That's why we have Republicans, Democrats, and independents. But I really believe in my heart of hearts that law enforcement there is no place for Republican or Democrat in law enforcement. It has to be to the code and the Constitution. And then your policies and procedures will guide you through to doing the right things. Are you going to be perfect all the time? No. But you didn't elect me to be perfect. You didn't elect me to ensure that the sheriff's office would be perfect. You elected me to do it right when bad things did happen. And they do happen, or we wouldn't wear a gun and a bulletproof vest to work.
That's right. That's one thing too. I see Robbie comes in here and does these talks. He always wears his bulletproof.
Oh yeah.
As he gets closer to retirement, he has that vest on all the time.
Well, and there was
bad stuff does happen. I think you mentioned that a couple times before about bad stuff.
Well, the thing of it is my Fifth Amendment really was violated because I wasn't even there. That case, all those things that you put, if you look at they were completed 2 months after I left. 2 months after I left, they never got my point of view. They have my body camera footage. They surely do. And they will see me processing that vehicle visually, right? I've been doing this 30 years. I know if there's a fingerprint on a glass.
Right.
Right? So, and the last one was the missing juvenile. The only thing was they said that I didn't turn it over to investigations. Well, that's not true. I called Jay Choi. Jay Choi was our juvenile detective. He says he didn't recall. That's what I read in the stuff that was put out. I'd never seen that investigation before. He said he didn't recall me calling him. Well, he's not telling you I didn't recall him. He's saying he didn't recall me calling him.
Right.
Well, that's a difference.
Right.
Right?
So you didn't say you didn't call him.
Right. So at what point? No, they're all false. They're all false, and I'm not discussing it anymore.
Okay.
I'm done with that. I'm done with Herndon. I don't think about Herndon. I'm glad they think of me so much that they like to put me in their minds and thoughts every day. But no, I have better things to do. I'm Sheriff of Warren County,
right,
and we need to move forward with it. So I'm done talking about Herndon.
Well, speaking of Herndon, we had our Commonwealth Attorney blasted you on at the same thing, saying that you're a case that you arrested someone on for drug use, which I thought was an interesting happen. Explain to me what this case was. Not explain to me about the case, but what was the situation that caused you to have this case?
Well,
this is one where you found people in the courthouse yard doing drugs or something.
Yeah, I was called to Schul's. Schul's called me because I've known them at Schul's for a long time, and which backs right up to our courthouse parking lot, pretty close, probably within 20 yards. And I was coming down. I checked the courthouse in certain areas each day, so I was right there. So I stopped in. I saw the individual burning some kind of foil with drugs and a lighter and a straw, and I was like, ah. And then the other person was passed out, and the smoke's filled with the car. So
that's suspicion.
Right, reasonable suspicion. We found caps and we found all other things, but let's talk about John Bell. Mike, basically, what John Bell did to me would be like if someone came up and said, "Hey, I saw Mike McCool. It's my opinion that Mike McCool's the biggest drug dealer in Warren County." And then John Bell, just go ahead, go arrest him. Your Fifth Amendment would be due process, right? There's got to be due process somewhere, right? So without even asking you, I'll just go up and defame. I can't talk about John Bell too much, but I will say this. There's two people that can do a Brady list. If you look at Brady and Giglio.
Explain what that is.
Brady and Giglio is if someone is totally just unworthy to testify in court.
Okay.
Well, look at Mr. Bulger in Boston. He killed 23 people, and he was a witness in court. I haven't been found guilty of no charges. This is an opinion. And John Bell never once even calls me and says, "Hey, what is this?" He just went ahead and said, "Oh, well, let's go ahead and put a press release out and let's do this publicly." So I did. I called for the third time. I called the Attorney General on John Bell. John Bell's not happy with me. I get it. I've called the Attorney General's office 3 times on John Bell. Here's the letter. It clearly says it. So,
when was this one dated?
this one's February 16 of 2022. Because if someone's an elected official, I can't investigate them unless the Attorney General said so. Right? So I was elected to do a few things, and I promised to do a few things. I can't be bought by anybody in this county, period. Not you, not anyone else. That's why I will not go with any party. I will always run as an independent. I can't be bought. So when I start looking into certain cases, and they involve political figures, elected officials, I have to, per the code, Virginia Code 52.8.2, I have to actually contact the Attorney General, which I have. I've had meetings with the IRS. I've had meetings with the FBI. I've had meetings with phone meetings with the Attorney General's office. So people ask me, elected me in Warren County to actually fight and go after the corruption. 3.5 years ago, that Warren County Sheriff's Office in Warren County has going through the biggest scandal in Virginia. I was elected to do a job, and I held my hand up to do an oath. So, yeah, I will look into nonprofit organizations that aren't registered with the IRS. I've called them already, too. So I'm constantly working cases, like being drug into the sludge gate. I call it sludge gate, but the waste, improper waste, that the town and county, yeah, they were violating, there were laws violated, but it was more just improper management. Just because we're complacent and doing things, well, that's how we've always done it, doesn't mean it's right. So we fix it, right? It doesn't mean you have to arrest everybody either.
Right.
So a lot of things have been blown out of proportion, but as far as John Bell goes, I left the drug task force a year ago, in 2021, January of 2021, because John Bell's not prosecuting. Matter of fact, I think he's all over the news right now because he fails to prosecute. So our guys were frustrated. Hey, we're making all these arrests, which clearly we are, because our arrests have gone up 60-70% in the 3 years I've been sheriff compared to the 3 years prior.
Right.
We've taken 810% more drugs off the street than 3 years prior. So why is our bedding in the jail less? Yeah. Hell, people are getting let out of jail faster than it takes us to put them in jail.
Yeah.
So I've asked everybody, please. I've even reached out to Saul Goodman and said, will you please run for Commonwealth Attorney?
Yeah.
Because I have no faith in John Bell.
Right.
Well,
I see the same. We see the indictments come down every month, and then when I go and search them on the RSW and see, oh, we got to find their mugshot. My gosh, they've been arrested
15, 20 times.
One person this last time was arrested like on a Monday, got out of jail on Tuesday, was arrested again on Wednesday, got out of jail on Thursday, was arrested again on Friday, all for the same charge.
Okay, so I told you when I ran for sheriff, one of the things I would be hard on drugs, and I would go after it. But so did John Bell. I've done my part. John Bell hasn't done his part.
Right.
So, I've reached out to Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. You can call them. They'll tell you. They'll come down and sit in our courtrooms because we're not prosecuting DUIs and DUIDs. So, of course John Bell's not going to be happy with me.
All right.
Any case that I get, I try to get him recused.
Yeah.
Any case. Because I don't have faith in them. There's a few people in there in the Commonwealth Attorney's office, and they've all left. Now, there's some others in there, and I don't want to talk bad about that. I don't, because I think they have a boss, but I'm under the vision of John Bell. I just don't believe he's what Warren County needs as Commonwealth. I really don't.
It doesn't, like you say, I think we don't realize the Commonwealth Attorney is supposed to be the chief law enforcement officer of the county.
He's the chief court for the laws.
Right.
But
But if they don't do their job, anyone under it doesn't really help, does it?
My job is to get them to court.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel John Bell is doing his job, which I haven't, I reach out to the Attorney General's office like I have, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers like I have. Now I have some attorneys that are looking into some of the improprieties that maybe John Bell has done. But that I can't go into that. Right. Those are open court cases right now that may be coming up. Yeah, I'm not a fan of John Bell. I didn't vote for John Bell. I've asked, I've had meetings. He doesn't want to do his job, but the sheriff's office will continue to do its job and make the streets safer in Warren County.
Yeah, that's a tongue twister.
It is, right? and we've done that. Yeah. And if you look at it, I've completed everything I ran on.
That's kind of like, say, when people make a list of, there's 10 things I'm going to do, and you do it, how can you fault that?
Right. I mean, and we have a lot of successes. We have a lot of successes. We have some things that I wish we could do better. Our staffing, we're doing pretty well with staffing.
Right. We just graduated an academy.
And phenomenal individuals.
Yeah, I know a couple of them on there. You got some good people on this last time around there.
We do. We're always going to have people leaving and going other places, getting out of law enforcement, going federal, going whatever.
This is a question I ask. People say, nowadays, you ask somebody, do they work there? What would give me a reference on someone? Well, you really can't.
Right.
You got to be careful. You just say, like when you fire somebody, your services are no longer requested. That's pretty much the safe answer. But I always tell people when I'm calling for job references, I say, I'm calling for a job reference, but all I want to know is if you had an opening, would you hire them back again?
Right.
That's all you got to ask, because they can tell you that. And if they give me a yes, then that's a pretty good reference. Or if they give me a no, that's a pretty good reference.
Right.
So same thing with the Sheriff's Department.
It is.
So you've lost a lot of people, not a lot, considering how many employees you have, but people come and go.
They do.
So are there people you would hire back, or are there people you wouldn't hire back?
There's some that I would hire back. There's a few. I think when you become accredited and the CCPC, and we'll get into it, those later, in the PAYS program and everything else that we do, what we're looking for is a little different. And, some people just don't like change.
Right. Oh, that's true.
Some people just don't like change. I guarantee you have people in here that if you were to change up how they do things, it's going to throw their whole day off, and they're just not going to be happy.
Right.
So when you can go and you can make $10,000, $12,000 more dollars 15 miles away in Fauquier County, it makes it difficult to keep staffing, right? And then when you have, in the sheriff's office, there's so many responsibilities in the sheriff's office compared to a town police department.
Sure.
And I've worked both.
Right.
I've worked every aspect of the Fairfax County Sheriff's Office, most aspects of law enforcement side altogether.
I don't think people realize how much the area of the Sheriff Department, just the courthouse alone. I mean, schools.
Schools, ACOs.
ACOs, quit using acronyms.
Animal control.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And school resource officers. Right. Our school resource officers have taken 187% more calls for service in 3 years I've been sheriff compared to the 3 years prior. We've dealt with COVID. We've dealt with civil unrest. We've dealt with so many different things in the first 3 years. The COVID threw a lot of loopholes in. You get someone sick, they were out for 2 weeks, had to backfill. So, whenever you're down, you're down. We've written grants for an additional school resource officer. But it also, for every position we have that's not filled, we have about 1.5 years it takes to get them trained up. As we look at it, the prior administration averaged 7 vacancies, 7 per year. Actually, Sheriff McKeithron actually stated that in his budget meeting one year. He said, hey, Warren County Sheriff's Office is a stepping stool. And that's what it is. It's a stepping stool, people to come in, get trained, and then they go somewhere else and make more money. We need to fix that somehow.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to one of your deputies one time. I think he was at a county meeting or somewhere. He said, he left Clark County to come to work for you because it was a better place to work. I thought that was a kind of a shock to me. He had a job in Clark County, which is not that difficult. I mean, Clark County is a little more rural. You know what I mean?
But
he said it was a lot more interesting working over in Warren County.
we have a lot of very good deputies and very proud of the direction it's moving. Do we have some things we need to learn and get better at in jail? Yes, we do. But the only way the Warren County Sheriff's Office is going to continue to grow and move into the future is with stability. And that's why I'm running again.
Yeah. Let's talk about one of the things you have accomplished, or two things you've accomplished that you said you were going to do, and that's this accreditation. You know, people look at it, I don't think people really see the importance of it, or what's the big picture of this accreditation. Can you kind of give me the 30,000-foot view? And here's the old saying, what's going to do for me?
Well, I think what it does is it's kind of like a mechanic. You know, if you have your car and you want to take your car to a shop and you know that that's an ACE certified mechanic and has been for many years, you think, okay.
Confidence.
Yeah, I can drop my car off here and I shouldn't have to worry about it not being done properly, correct? So in law enforcement, I think everything should have it. Lawyers have the Bar Association. Right. Been reaching out to them lately as well. But everybody has a certification, right? Even realtors, right? Anyone who has a license. So if they don't withhold or they don't uphold their standards, then what are you really getting? So in 2019, the Warren County Sheriff's Office lost its accreditation. I can tell you they started losing it in 2015. If you are not holding to the 100 and some standards that this board has put out there, you're not going to be accredited. So us getting accreditation back, that tells the community, hold on, their policies are right. How they're following their procedures are right through all aspects. And I'm proud to say that we're the only law enforcement accredited agency in Warren County. And we were able to do it in 3.5 short years. Mm-hmm. Through COVID, civil unrest, short staffing, underpaid, and everything else. So, yeah, I'm very proud of it.
Here, I'll throw up in a negative thing. The only reason you got accreditation is so you get a $10,000 raise.
Well, that's the state paying me.
Right. $8,900.
My pay is paid by the state.
Right.
Right. So that's not why we did it.
Right.
I'm not going to turn it down though either.
Right.
But that shows you how important accreditation is for the state to say, hey, if your sheriff's office gets accredited, we'll pay you, Sheriff, $8,900 more a month.
Right.
So what does that tell you? How important?
A year or a month?
I mean, a year.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That'd be good, right? But no, that shows you how important it is, though, Mike.
Well, and I was looking at that. There's 300 at the time. I think 304 law enforcement agencies in Virginia. With yours this year, when you got your accreditation, you were the 103rd?
Something like that.
Something like that. So that means there's about 200 other agencies in the state that haven't been accredited. Mm-hmm. And so to me, wouldn't all of those people would want to get another $8,900 a month?
Well, I think those other sheriffs...
They're not all, yeah.
You know, they've reached out to... A lot of sheriffs have reached out to me.
Said, how'd you do it?
Exactly. And what we did was brought experience and knowledge to the sheriff's office here, and we were able to redo all our policies instead of just cutting and pasting and using someone else's. We did our policies in accordance with accreditation and our standards of how we want to do it.
Kind of like your budget, zero-based accreditation, started over again.
Right. And you know what? Let's talk about the budget. We know accreditation's important. Anyone who says accreditation's not important, that's like saying, well, they're just glad they played in the Super Bowl. They don't care if they win it or not.
Right.
Because accreditation and sheriff and law enforcement is like winning the Super Bowl. You know, when we look at a budget, Ed Daly will tell you, the sheriff's office budget has been the best budget in the county for 3.5 years. Yes, my budget has gone up in pay. That's it. And all our grants that we've written, We've written over $2 million in grants. We've only received over, I think it's close to 1.5 million in grants. So that takes all the stress, or a lot of stress, off of the county taxpayers, which I'm one of and you're one of.
Yes.
And so I'm very proud that we have been diligent. We have been very focused on trying to do it right, and that's what I ran on.
Sure.
I have accomplished everything I ran on, everything, and I'm very proud of that fact.
Well, going forward with this accreditation, I think you or someone told me that, yeah, you get accredited, but to stay accredited
Starts the very next day.
It's almost like harder than getting the accreditation.
It is. But, the way we have it set up in Major Driscoll, I brought Major Driscoll on 3.5 years ago. And this was my vision. My vision was to get accredited, take community policing to the highest of levels, which that's what we've done with the CCPC, that we received the Certified Crime Prevention community.
Only the 13th person in the...
Only the 13th person in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And you have to be accredited first to get this. And this is so many programs that we've been able to put together. The drug court, that was all done on the back of Major Driscoll and Beth Rivas.
Right.
All done on that. And the sheriff's office. So now there were some other people that have jumped on and taken some of the load,
Sure.
or a lot of the load, but the majority of the weight was carried by Major Driscoll, the sheriff's office, and Beth Rivas. And so we came together, and this is what we wanted to do. The Youth Academy, Major Driscoll, Sergeant Fritz, they took my vision of what I wanted, and they even made it better. And that's what you do, is you have a vision. That was my vision, community policing. Community has to trust us, right? You have to look at your sheriff's office and say, okay, they're here to help. But not every day is going to be happy. And one thing I've learned as being sheriff and in law enforcement is no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try to make everyone happy, some days you just can't do it.
No. Yeah.
But, I'm very... I think moving forward with the CCPC and the accreditation, that puts us in the top 3% of all law enforcement agencies in Virginia.
Yeah, I just don't think the public's really aware of how important this accreditation is on a long-term basis and what it does for the county.
It opens up for more grants. It opens up for different liabilities because, you do have mistakes that happen. Anytime you have Mike, you have to make decisions as a business owner, and you have, very seldom do you have 3-second decisions you have to make.
Right.
3 seconds, right?
Right.
Normally you can, okay, let's just put this on a hold.
Talk about it tomorrow.
But in law enforcement, you may only have 3 seconds to respond.
That's where the training comes in, doesn't it?
Right.
It's got to be an automatic response. Almost.
It does, and sometimes in law enforcement, we're human. Everybody's human, and even the Supreme Court will tell you that law enforcement officers can have due process, or they get due process as well.
Right.
They don't lose their Fifth Amendment.
Right.
So
when you mention that, what comes to my mind is you're watching the training of when you're clearing the rooms and they pop up the pictures of the kids and the bad guys, and and you have to take a second just to whether you shoot them or not. You know what I mean? And that's what I thought of. Talk about split-second decisions.
We have one. I actually put some of the Board of Supervisors in it. And it's a shoot or no shoot situation with our FATS machine.
Right.
And it's based off a true scenario. They're making an arrest on an individual. They have handcuffs on. A young 12-year-old girl gets out of the truck with a shotgun. And you have to decide whether or not you're going to take the life of that 12-year-old girl or let her shoot you. And I can tell you, most people are going to struggle with that one.
Yeah.
Most people are going to struggle with that one.
Yeah.
So
until you're in those situations, you don't know what. That's where training comes in.
It does.
But I'll go back to this accreditation real quick.
Yeah.
You got both of these accreditations during the same time.
We got it in 1 year, and I don't think that's ever been accomplished.
Yeah.
So when I brought Major Driscoll on, that was his. He told me 3.5 years ago, I'm gonna help move us into accreditation, help get us the community policing, rewrite the policies and procedures and so forth, or help write them. And he was going to spearhead it.
Now, he wasn't really a law enforcement officer when you hired him, was he? A deputy?
He was retired law enforcement.
Right. Okay. So he had to go back through the academy again?
He didn't have to. He chose to, because that's just the type of person he is.
Yeah.
He was 60-some years old going through the academy.
Yeah.
And
But I heard people call him Dr. Driscoll.
yeah, because he has a PhD.
So he's a pretty smart guy.
He's a smart guy, very smart guy. He has his doctorate.
Don't let that white hair fool you, right?
He has his doctorate in business, and he also is a certified emergency manager. So I had one of the smartest minds in law enforcement I've ever met. And he has a lot to do with the success of the Warren County Sheriff's Office. About 4 months ago, he was looking at me and he goes, "Hey, I just want to retire. I'm pretty much burnt out and tired, right?" And I was like, "You just got to finish. I just need you to stay until we get accreditation," because I wanted him to be there when we got it. And I'm glad Jeff is, retiring and moving on to better things in his life, but he will be missed. This man has saved this county astronomically. I stand behind Jeff Driscoll 100%.
Well, good. So what else are we going to talk about?
Well, I think, we need to
Going
look at
forward, let's talk about, we know about the past. What are we going to do the next 4 years?
Well, the biggest thing is stability. We have to keep stability within our county, because if we continue to regurgitate the sheriff's office and the leadership and so forth, we're never going to get the foundation. We've built the foundation. We don't want the foundation to wash away. So that's why it's important for me to run again, and that's why I am running again. Our next sheriff should come out of the sheriff's office. And there's several people within that sheriff's office that would make fantastic sheriffs. And we have this saying in the sheriff's office, train the next man up.
Right.
And we have several that we're moving forward to, getting them leadership schools, probably FBI Academy in the second term, sending a couple of these individuals to the National Academy so they have even more arsenal to continue our sheriff's office, so we never fall into what I ran into 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
3.5 years ago, we walked in the sheriff's office, missing files. No one had accountability for anything other than the guns. No ammunition. Most of the cars were scattered all over Warren County. And we brought it all back. And, we're very frugal. Very frugal. But you got to understand, the county's been going through a bunch of stuff too. New finance directors, new HR directors, another new finance director, and another new finance director. So we have different policies and procedures of how we do things at the county level.
County administrators.
And Ed Daly's been, he's been a good resource for us. Jane Meadows, outstanding moving forward. And we are in contact and questioning with them and talking about different ways to do things. Someone asked me a question the other day about personnel, and they don't understand that I can't discuss personnel, and I'm not going to. If someone doesn't work for the Warren County Sheriff's Office any longer, well, that's between me and them. I'm not going to badmouth anyone who decides to make their life better. Matter of fact, I'll actually help them. So we've had people leave our office that I've actually called and said, "Hey, you might want to hire this individual." And I plan on doing that.
Yeah. Not everyone's a good fit in the situation. It's like, you have a machine and the wheel is turning, and sometimes the new people or old people come in, things change, and it gives a little nick in the gear, and it doesn't quite fit. Not against the individual, just fitting into culture that has been developed. I think that's important too. People have to fit in to the culture and to that wheel so that everything moves smoothly, and it doesn't make them bad.
It's no different than building a motor.
Yeah.
If you have an old motor that's got many miles on it, with bearings haven't been changed, rings
Right.
haven't been changed, and you put new heads on it with all this compression and all this. The bottom half's you're gonna spin a bearing, you're gonna do something like that. So that's the same thing, and it takes time.
It's always evolving. You're always constantly doing repairs. And so I think a business or an organization is no different.
There really is, and you're constantly making adjustments. Problem solving is one of the biggest things in leadership, and if you don't identify the problem, well, it's kind of hard to move forward. Right. So you have to identify the problem. You got to make a plan. You got to implement the plan, and then the second thing would be to review. And so I think you constantly have to review of where you're going, where you're at, where you've been, and I think we're getting a lot better.
Well, every day you have different situations, and I'm taking the fact that everything happens regardless of what COVID changed some of the things you did.
Yeah, COVID threw us behind the eight ball quite a bit, and a lot of people, it's not just the sheriff's office. A lot of people are, looking at work differently, looking at their lives differently. And, with the sheriff's office, what a lot of people don't understand is, you have the civil, you have criminal, you have courts, animal control, school resource officer, extraditions, so on and so forth. There's so many different things that a regular town or law enforcement agency has never done and don't do.
Right. Investigations. And
a lot of liabilities go along with it. So, like I said, a year ago, I left the drug task force. I don't regret that.
Still go after drugs?
Yeah, we've our 810% more drugs have been taken off the street in our 3 years compared to the 3 years prior. So those are the stats, and you can look at it. I mean, anyone can look at them. They're there. They're in our annual report that we put up. We don't hide anything. We created a CAC, Citizens Advisory Council, where every other month someone comes in, they can discuss whatever issues they have. So I think we've been more transparent than heck, you can look at the Royal Examiner and see we come into you all and do interviews more than any other sheriff has ever done. Now, granted, some of them, Len didn't have internet back in the day, so you got to give them some slack, right? But we have been very transparent.
Right. And when Robbie and Terry come in, that's part of your community policing effort. For the things that they do and the engaging in the community that we talk about, that's kind of all that. You don't think about it being policing, but it does, I think, sets up relationships with a lot of organizations and people.
It does.
And people see the deputy as a different, like going to the library and reading books with kids. That don't sound
look
like
at Project Lifesaver. Look how much we've expanded Project Lifesaver. When it first got in, there was only a couple deputies that even had the certification. Now we're getting everybody. Animal control. They only had 4 people doing animal control. Now we're training everybody in the department to do animal control. A lot of people don't understand animal control. This is the policies that the county has with the Humane Society. The sheriff's office, the animal control, we work for the county on that aspect, right? So there's certain things I came out Monday, and I spoke with a resident about a complaint on animal control. So I met with the animal control, and we went and we inspected the 2 houses. We do that frequently. They followed the guidelines. They had shade, they had water, they had food. Is it maybe as way I'd like to see my animals? No. But if they are following the law, well, opinions can't be a violation of the law.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing with the Herndon thing. If they're following the steps, just because your opinion is you should have done it differently, well, somebody shouldn't be prosecuted on opinion, right? And that's why I think it's so important, me as sheriff, to stay neutral, stay true to the Constitution, and let's be honest, When COVID came out, I was the one that stood up and said, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
Right? And we're not going to violate someone's constitutional right. I've had people talk bad about me or get up and complain in front of the Board of Supervisors, and they were like, hey, stop. No, let them do it. That's their First Amendment. I'm not going to invoke your constitutional right to protect mine. That's absurd. Right?
Right.
So moving forward into this campaign, I think Warren County's smart enough. I think we are, as a people, are tired of politics. We're tired of rhetoric. We're tired of the slamming and the mudslinging and all that. Put your resume versus the sheriff's office resume, and I'll see him for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Because I understand people have different opinions of how they want things done, but the proof is the proof. We've done a lot of things in 3.5 years that many agencies couldn't do, can't do.
Right.
So I'm very proud of that.
Right. Number 13th on the community.
Number
police.
13, we are in the top 3% of all law enforcement agencies in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yeah.
So my question would be well, what are the other agencies doing to reach that level?
Right.
I think every agency should be accredited.
Sure.
Or hold true to it.
Right.
I think everyone.
Why wouldn't you want to not have that?
Right, and I think every agency should be a part of the CCPC because it's truly community policing, and that's what we are, is public servants to the community. It doesn't matter if you're Protestant, Catholic, or whatever. My job is to treat everyone exactly the same.
Right.
And that's
what
what we're
seeing.
doing.
I think nationally we're divided over what's the phrase they use? One set of laws for these people, another set of laws for somebody else. We're seeing that.
Well, I think that's society,
That's
Mike.
society. I think people are tired of that, though. I don't think, and we're seeing it now over some national issues. But I think the same way. I guess we used to call it here the good old boy network.
Well, I can assure you, I'm not part of. I've gotten rid of the good old boy network in the sheriff's office.
Right.
Majority. I said we might have more, but one thing is for sure, I have proven over and over and over again, I cannot be bought. I cannot be bought, and I will not cower down to any bullies or anybody trying to push our county into a deeper hole.
Yeah. Anything else?
I'm good, Mike.
All right.
I look forward to the next 4 years.
Yeah. Normally you don't bring all these notes.
Yeah, but
Well, rarely did you look at them, so I guess we'll
I really don't. But I mean, there's.
I'm going to take a lot of flack because you didn't ask this question, you didn't ask that question, but I think we covered.
Well, I kind of figured the questions you were going to want to ask me,
So we just discuss them first without me asking.
right. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to play this mudslinging. I'm not going to cower to. Look at my resume. It's like sitting there having an argument of who's better,
Right.
Dan Marino or Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Well, look at the resumes. You'll figure out which one you want.
Yeah.
Depending on your offense you want to run.
Right.
So I think we're good. And I know one thing, November 8th, win or lose, when it's time for me to walk out of the sheriff's office, I will walk out with my head held high and very proud of what we've accomplished.
Well, Sheriff, good luck in the election. It's every 4 years. People need, if you're not registered to vote, please get ready to do that.
Oh, yeah.
It's really we just had the election yesterday, and out of our new Senate district, which is 5 counties in the city, and we only had 13,000 votes, and we know there's a lot more people than that. So maybe a little more than 13,000, but it's the few seem like they're doing the voting, and I think people need to become involved and just don't wait for someone else to make that decision for them.
Well, yeah.
I think it's important. We have elected officers for a reason, and I think that's
Agreed.
And people need to exercise their right to vote.
Agreed.
All right. Again, thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it, Mike.
I know that every time I ask the sheriff a question, he gives me an answer. I don't always like it, but at least I get an answer.
I will give you an answer.
I appreciate that. Thanks again, Sheriff.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.